In last week's episode, we talked about nightmares and night terrors. That topic naturally leads to the conversation of nighttime fears, and monsters is a very common one. Today, I'm going to share 3 popular approaches to helping children overcome their fear of monsters and other imaginative creatures, and I'm going to share why I don't find these approaches to be all that helpful, and sometimes they're even counterproductive. I'll also share some very specific language that you can use to actually help your child move past their nighttime fears. Hi, I'm Allison Egidi, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of 2. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. There are many creative recommendations out there for helping a child who has a fear of monsters or any other imaginative fear. 3 very popular ones are 1, monster spray, 2, checking spaces to actually show your child that there are no monsters there, and 3, telling them a stuffed animal or something else in the house will protect them from whatever it is they are scared of. Today, I want to talk through these 3 recommendations and why I find that they often fuel fears rather than stop them. All right, first, let's talk about monster spray. This is a popular one, and I have to admit, it's the one that seems to backfire the most, and I find most baffling as to why it became so popular. If you're not familiar with monster spray, the idea is that you take a spray bottle, fill it with water, and tell your child that it's, quote, monster spray. You spray it in your child's room and tell them that this special spray will keep the monsters away. No need for them to worry now, right? Wrong. The problem with monster spray is that the entire concept validates the terrifying idea that monsters could actually be in your child's room. If you're talking to your child about using monster spray, that is sending the message that monsters do exist and you actually need to use this spray in order to keep them away. Let's think about that for a second. That's actually kind of terrifying. Even if you're telling your child that monsters aren't real, you're putting that entire statement into question by actually using monster spray. They have zero reason to believe you when you say that monsters aren't real because, well, you're spraying for them. The second popular approach is to check for monsters in certain spaces to prove to your child that there is nothing there that they need to worry about. If your child is constantly asking you to check behind the curtains, check under the bed, or check in the closets for monsters or whatever else they're worried about, and you are actually doing that to prove a point, that too can leave your child feeling like there's a chance that something could be there. And that's why you're double checking to make sure that nothing is there. I'll share some language you can use to help them move past this request in just a minute. And the third popular approach is telling your child that a stuffed animal, the dog, a nightlight, or even you will protect them from monsters. This can also fuel the fear in a similar way that the first 2 approaches can. If monsters aren't real, why would your child need anything or anyone to protect them from a monster? Now, with all of that being said, nighttime fears can be very real for some kids, and they should be addressed. So, one thing you want to do is assess if your child really is afraid or if they've come to realize that maybe they were afraid or nervous one night and then you really gave a big reaction to it. And they're using that as a tool to keep you in the room or to get you to do something else. Either way, this advice that I will give is helpful to help you move past it. But that's another thing to keep in mind is trying to tell the difference between addressing a true fear versus a child that's just super smart and has realized this is a way to get some extras or to slow down the routine. But if you use this language and it's not a real fear, then you're probably going to quickly realize it because your child will probably self identify like, oh no, we don't have to make those changes because I'm actually not worried about that. I'll circle back on that in a second. So, what can you do to help your child move past true nighttime fears or to assess whether they weren't really truly afraid to begin with? When navigating nighttime fears related to the imagination, so things like monsters, or I'll work with a lot of kids who are worried about sharks if they read or saw something about sharks. So something that's not realistic to be in their room but related to their imagination, the truth is always the best way to ease your child's fear and anxiety. And then you want to help protect that imagination as it relates to sleep. So rather than using monster spray, looking under the bed or in the closet to confirm there are no monsters there, adding extra night lights, or doing anything else to keep the quote monsters away, I want to encourage you to do 3 things. 1, acknowledge your child's feelings. 2, tell them the truth. 3, give them a tool to help them work through or past their fear or anxiety. So, what might that look like in real life? Here's an example. Your child may say, "But mommy, I need you to stay with me because I'm scared that a monster is going to come into my room or come out of the closet or that a monster lives under my bed." You can acknowledge their feelings by saying, "I understand that you feel worried right now." And then you can tell them the truth. "But I have very good news for you. Monsters aren't real. It would be impossible for a monster to be in your room because monsters are only in movies, shows, books, and in our imagination. You are always safe in your room." Then you can give them a tool to help them move past their worries. Because if they are truly worried, it's one thing for us to say, "Don't worry about it." As we all know, when you get worried, sometimes it's hard to shut that off. So we want to give them a tool if they do, in fact, struggle with this fear or concern. So you can say, "Do you know what I like to do when I get worried?" Because if you didn't know this already, we all worry sometimes. Did you know that? Mommy worries, daddy worries, your sister worries, the dog worries, everyone worries sometimes. So, do you know what I like to do when I get worried? I like to hug my pillow because I don't have a lovey in my room. So, I like to hug my pillow and think about something that I love doing. For example, I like to think about our trips to the beach and when we play in the sand. Oh, I love playing at the beach with you. I like to think about our nice walks around the pond with the dogs. Oh, those are the best. So if you're feeling worried, you can think about something that you love doing, just like I think about something that I love doing. And then you can fall asleep thinking about things that make you happy. So, what is something that you can think about when you're worried? Notice that in my example, I shared something that I do with my child that I know she likes to do. That way, if she's really worried or anxious in that moment, she could just borrow my example if she wants to, and she doesn't have to spend energy trying to think up something. Once your child gives you an example of what they can think about when they are worried, you can say, "That's awesome." So, whenever you start to feel worried, just hug your lovey and think about playing at the park with your friends. That way, you can go to sleep thinking about happy things. And if your child is asking you to check for monsters or under the bed or check for anything and something you've previously done, or if they just bring it up out of the blue, just calmly reassure them that you don't need to look for monsters because monsters aren't real. You can say, "I don't need to check under the bed for monsters because it would be impossible for a monster to be under the bed or in the closet." If they push back on you, you can just remind them of the tool that we just discussed that they can use for thinking about something that makes them happy. It's also important to try to pinpoint what triggered your child's fear of monsters or whatever the imaginative fear that they are dealing with. If it was a movie, show, or a book, you can point that out to them, and then you can avoid those types of movies, books, or shows for a while, not forever, but for a period of time. For example, you can say, "Oh my goodness, I think watching Monsters, Inc. really got your imagination going. You have a great imagination, which is so awesome. But right now, your imagination is making it hard for you to sleep because it thinks some things are real that aren't." The good news is that monsters aren't real. They are just in the movies, shows, and books, and in our imagination. But you will never find a monster in your room or in our house. Since that movie has made you worry, we're going to take a break from watching monster movies for a while so that your imagination can take a break too, and it doesn't mess with your sleep. So then you will follow up with giving them the tool of what you want them to do if they're feeling worried. But then you really do need to protect them from whatever is driving that fear for a while. When some time goes by and they haven't brought it up, you could certainly experiment with it again. I might preface that by saying, sure, we'll try to watch this movie, but if it starts to make you worry at bedtime, then we're not going to watch shows like this for a while. This is where you also will start to find out if they were pulling your leg. Because if it really wasn't a fear that was being fueled by something like a movie or a book or a show, and it's just a seed that got planted for them to kind of pretend they have this fear, then they're going to quickly tell you if they want to watch that show, like, no, it doesn't make me worry. It'll be fine. So this tool is a great tool if it's a true fear, and it will also help you figure out if it wasn't a fear, because your child will often own up to it in order to keep reading the books or watching the shows or movies that they enjoy that actually aren't causing a fear. Helping our children understand what triggers these worries, if it is really happening, is so helpful because it can help them learn to protect themselves against things that cause fears. So, for example, I don't like to watch scary movies still to this day. I know this because I'm an adult and I avoid that. But we can help our children learn to protect their imagination if they need to. Of course, this takes time, but before Addison was 5 years old, she could identify if we were reading a book or watching a movie that was going to make her worry at bedtime or have nightmares. Now that she's 9 years old, she can watch and read a lot more things that she absolutely could not watch or read at the age of 5. But she is still more anxious and protective of her imagination than, say, our youngest Ainsley needs to be. I always joke, Ainsley could watch a horror film and go right to bed and not have concerns because that's just not how her imagination works. So you might be wondering if it can really be this easy. Can we just tell them the truth and give them a tool? Yes, I promise. I help families do this all the time. So give honesty a try, and throughout the process, remind yourself that your child is safe in their room. You will not be proven wrong here. A shark or a monster is not going to suddenly come out of the closet and make you a liar. If you're calm and confident, your child is going to pick up on your energy. They will start to feel more calm and confident, and they will trust when you tell them that they don't need to worry about this. I hope you found this episode helpful. Before I go, I want to let you know that I'll be opening enrollment in my new preschool sleep program very soon. If you'd like to be notified when enrollment opens, you can find the link in the show notes at sleepandwellnesscoach.com/episode-28. As we enter the month of May next week, we will be starting a 4-part series on maternal mental health. I have some great guests joining me on the podcast to discuss this very important topic. As always, thanks for listening, and I hope you'll come back again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.